The thing that defines the Cybertruck though, that dictates how it looks and why it's been a total nightmare to engineer and why it still remains to be seen if they can ever put this into proper mass production at their gigafactory in Austin, Texas, is the quite literally bulletproof stainless steel exoskeleton. The version we're driving here is the circa $100,000 top spec tri-motor version known internally as the Beast, with 2 induction motors on the rear axle and a permanent Magnum motor on the front. The dual motor is also available, and eventually a single motor rear wheel drive model will follow. This tri-motor has over 900 horsepower, can do 0 to 62 in under 3 seconds and can tow up to 5 tons. It also weighs over 3 tons and has a 123 kilowatt hour battery, Tesla's biggest yet, with a range of around 325 miles. That's roughly in line with the Ford F-150 Lightning, although Tesla will offer a 50 kilowatt hour extender pack that bolts into the bed and takes away some cargo space but extends the range significantly. The powertrain, which runs on an 800 volt architecture, a Tesla first, will charge at up to 350 kilowatts if you can find a V4 supercharger, and is entirely designed and built in-house by Tesla.
There's a focus on efficiency and cost savings in the battery pack too. The truck uses 1,366 of these second-generation 4680 cells that Tesla designed, developed, and then produced in-house. These are significantly larger than the original off-the-shelf batteries that Tesla used for the original Roadster, but also the S and the X, or even the 2170 cells that Tesla designed together with Panasonic for the Model 3 and Model Y.
The 4680s are not only able to store more energy and release more power without overheating, remember that consistent quarter-mile performance, but they cost far less to produce. And key point here, Tesla makes them itself.
Which means you can add the battery pack to Tesla's fully vertically integrated product, i.e. Tesla wants to own everything from the battery to the motor to the software to the hardware to the equipment to the dealers to the service centers to the superchargers and everything else in the supply chain. And as somebody probably said once, the best voltage is high voltage, and the Cybertruck is Tesla's first car to run on 800 volts. But there is something no one has ever done before. Tesla quadrupled the low voltage side of this car, meaning anything that would have otherwise run on 12 volts now runs on 48 volts. This cuts the current needs in 4, meaning this car needs only a quarter as much copper, saving Tesla money that it can then pass on to you. Tesla finally had enough, and so it sent a pamphlet to the CEO of every other car company entitled How to Design a 48-Volt Vehicle. The balls. The primary beneficiary of the 48-volt system is steer-by-wire. For the very first time ever on a production car, there is no physical connection between the steering wheel and the front wheels. All I have to do is turn the car on, and now I can steer. The front wheels are turned using a pair of redundant electric motors mounted directly to the steering rack. The rears are turned with a third motor, and together the 3 motors can output 5 horsepower. Running 5 horsepower on 12 volts would send 3 times the current across the wires as your average 1970s house could handle.
Need to see how the Cybertruck holds up when you leave the city behind. Right, so I shall start by pointing out the bleeding obvious, that this car is absolutely obscenely rapid for something this large. I've driven both the Hummer EV and the Ford F-150 Lightning, and this is just on another level to both of those cars in terms of sharpness. In fact, there's a nice straight bit of road here and no one behind me. If I come to a stop, I'm in beast mode already. I push the brake hard and then push the throttle at the same time. This should engage cheetah mode, nose down, rear up, ready to launch. Oh, and off we go. No time to look at the fancy graphics, and I can't keep my foot in for much longer than that. I've done it before in fast EVs. It never gets old, does it? All the blood goes to the back of your body and you do feel a little bit sick. But in this, it's just a different type of experience, isn't it? Because it's a 3-ton pickup truck. It's not supposed to do things like that. It does beg the question, should a pickup truck be this fast? Does a pickup truck need to be this fast? No. If Of course it doesn't, obviously it doesn't, but Tesla has made its calling card fast drag times, fast straight line acceleration, so it's not about to stop here. And in fact, on a car like this, all that torque and power might actually be quite useful, because if you're towing 5 tons behind you, it'll come in handy. Okay, so what about its behaviour in the corners? Well, we got to start at the suspension. You've got this self-levelling air suspension with active adaptive dampers at all 4 corners. It's all very clever. It can lift the car up to a really quite high height for off-roading. It can lower it right down for access. All I know is clever things are going on underneath me, and the roll in the corners, it's much less than you expect. There's not much heave and lurch when you're under acceleration as well. It's not a sports car, this thing, obviously, but it does put traditional trucks in the shade. And then we get to the steering. So obviously when we drove this at town speeds, at low speeds, it took some serious getting used to. That variable ratio, the 4-wheel steering, it was a super alert, lively, direct rack, and my brain was still trying to calibrate it, if I'm honest. But here, at slightly higher speeds, it starts to feel more natural because you've got that variable ratio. It's not so alert, off center, and you really can start to clip along at quite a rate. The other big surprise is the stiffness in the chassis. One of the things that you accept when you're driving a traditional truck is the fact that it's going to be a bit rattly and a bit wobbly, and when you hit a big bump like this bridge we're coming up to now, you get a shudder through the chassis. But in this, we're in beast mode, so the firmer suspension setting, yeah, you get a bit of a bump, but not that big wobble that suggests looseness. It feels tight, it feels stiff, it feels car-like in that regard. And then there's the brakes. So the Cybertruck has regen when you lift off the throttle of 0.3 G, so that's slightly stronger than you get in something like the Model X. Personally, I like it. You can't switch it off, so you're stuck with it whether you like it or not. And the brakes themselves, well, they work great. I haven't had any issues with them, despite this being a 3-ton pickup. That point between regen handing over to mechanical friction, I haven't spotted it. So big tick in that box. So then we come to the big question. Is the Cybertruck actually fun to drive? Does it need to be fun to drive? I mean, people are going to buy these things in their hundreds of thousands because of the way it looks, because of the headline figures, because it's a Tesla, because when all's said and done, it is a practical truck. Does it need to be fun to drive? Well, this is the area I was prepared for this thing to fall down. They'd put all the engineering effort into the stainless steel exoskeleton, into making it manufacturable, and then maybe they'd forget about the chassis dynamics. But honestly, this is where I've been proved wrong. This is where the big surprise has come today on this road, where actually it's not just rudely fast to drive around on a windy B road like this, but it's actually good fun. And that's all down to body control, the acceleration, and just the way that it reacts to your inputs. It doesn't feel like a truck. It feels like a car. Before we go back to Tesla's design centre, while we're up here away from the rabble, let's have a proper poke around the inside. Okay, so the interior of the Tesla Cybertruck, and the best thing about this section is there isn't really much to it in true Tesla style. We've got a couple of Cyber cup holders, a couple of Cyber wireless phone chargers, a big storage bin in the middle here, a couple of seats, a bench in the back, and that's sort of about it. A lot of space down here for storing stuff. In front of me, there's a bit of a story. So this is called the Squircle. It's kind of a development of the yoke that they added to Model S and the Model X, except it's sprouted a top bar here, which makes it infinitely more usable, but still not quite as useful as a normal steering wheel. And to add to the annoyance, there's now no stalks, so you have to push these buttons left and right on the wheel. I have got used to it, but honestly, I don't know why they quite literally had to reinvent the wheel on this one. And here's a fun fact for you. In the center of the steering wheel, you'll notice there is a Cybertruck logo, this sort of triangular slice here. You will not find a Tesla logo on this car. You'll notice behind here, no instrument cluster. There is no screen behind here. Totally clean, unimpeded view of the road ahead, and it is a really good visibility from here with this enormous slab of glass over your head. But surprise, surprise, all the magic happens in one central screen. This one is 18.5 inches. In the Model X and the Model S you get 17 inches, I believe, and you're greeted by this pretty fantastic graphic of your Cybertruck. And you can swing this around and you can play around. You can see the doors open because that's where the camera is pointing at me over there, but you can have some fun here. So if I click this button and click that, then you can open the tonneau cover in the back. I can even open the tailgate. I can even go crazy and open my frunk at the front of the car. Now you notice there is no rear view mirror here. That's because with the load bay cover in place at the back, rear visibility is effectively zero, but Tesla have thought of that. And if I put the car into drive, which is swiping forward over there on the little car, you'll see that this is your rear view mirror out the back. You can move it over here and have it a bit smaller, or you can have it here. And then you dive into the menus over here. So anyone that's driven a Tesla or owns a Tesla will be familiar with this setup, but there's a few subtle differences here with the Cybertruck. So this control section here, this is basically all your quick shortcuts for adjusting your mirrors, adjusting your steering wheel. It is a bit laborious when you just want to move the wheel up and down, but for the sake of having everything in one screen, that's what Tesla's decided to do. Now down here, the glove box. Oh, I like that. It's a very nice action indeed. The suspension, we talked about that as well. You can have it high, low, or entry when you're in on-road mode. And as I'll show you in a minute, you've got an off-road mode. So we go to the Dynamics tab. Here we go. We're in on-road. You choose your mode. We're in beast mode, of course. The interesting thing about beast mode, this is the equivalent of ludicrous or plaid. It's the most aggressive mode that you can have your Cybertruck in. But honestly, it's pretty usable. It's pretty livable with. If you don't mind the suspension a little on the firm side, then you could just drive beast all day long. And then underneath you've got all the different attributes, and the moment you start playing with these, with how you want your acceleration, chill, sport or beast, it flips to custom mode. You can choose your ride or handling, relaxed or focused, and your ride height, low or medium. Now if we go into off-road mode, Tesla wants you to confirm that you do indeed want to go off-road in your Cybertruck. And the two big things here are Overland and Baja. Baja being the off-road fast desert racer mode. Yes, you can take your Cybertruck out into the dirt and really give it some. The engineers have been telling me about adventures they've had in Baja doing jumps, and the suspension's all set up for that, for soft landings, and it can take all the punishment you like. And as we mentioned before, you don't have a diff hanging down at the back, so the ground clearance is fantastic on this thing. Towing and hauling, of course, that's a crucial thing when it comes to the Cybertruck, and the rest, to be honest, that's pretty standard stuff from Tesla. Now of course it does beg the question as to whether having absolutely everything on a central screen is a bit too distracting. It's going to take some learning. Personally, we've had 2 days in the Cybertruck, and I could still do with a few more hours getting my head around how all the sub-menus work. But look, if there was ever a car that deserved a squircle, no instrument cluster, and absolutely everything to be controlled from a supersized central screen, it's the Cybertruck, isn't it?
If you're watching this video anywhere other than America, you can't buy one. Pedestrian protection laws and the radius of those panel edges means it'll only go on sale in the US, for the time being at least. But if you are an American deposit holder, this bit's for you.